Transdemic podcast, welcome back for another crazy week in the world of the trans. I'm not going to do that much talking. You already know what is going on out there. And as all this crazy climate in the world continues, we're just here burning, just hanging out and having cool conversations with trans people about their lives, their experience. And today we have Alice, aka Lil Lavedy. I'm just going to call her Lil Lavedy. Rapper, DIY activist, everything is here on the podcast to talk about her experiences growing up, and not just about trans stuff, but we talk about mental health and like the real life experiences beyond just transition and all those things that you hear most of the time. So I am not going to talk much. We're going to get into this conversation with Bentley, Lil Lavedy. I don't know, like now.
Super nice drum kit there that I got to use every time, so I didn't have to load it in. So that was always cool.
The sound there's pretty nice.
Yeah, it was awesome.
Well, I guess with that, again, it was another weird day. Not weird, but I've been extremely busy because I just got done cooking a bunch of shit because we're like going to do this. Well, I was doing these pop-ups, and the pop-ups are just like fucking around and doing whatever. But now the next pop-up and the next stuff we do are like what's going to be like on this menu, like the real shit. So I've been cooking all day, and now I'm down here talking, and now we're going to get into some podcasting. I thought I was done with this shit with the Mood House, and here we are with Transdemic just going right along.
Oh, man. Fucking it up.
But I guess I'm just going to kick off everything just so we're not here talking for 35 hours. But thanks, Lavedy, for coming on and talking with us. It was a weird week where, again, I just didn't get a lot of questions or engagement. So it's awesome that you're coming on to be able to just kind of share your story a bit. However transparent or not you want to be. I think what I really like about you, I mean, again, we don't know each other that well, to be honest. We've only played a couple shows, but it's like, we have a lot of similar experiences, or when you have a background as a trans person, we're not all the same at all. Everything's so different, but there is like that, that weird, to me, there's always an innate, like wild feeling when you meet other trans people. That's like, there's this like connection there.
Yeah. I mean, it's definitely more of a innate connection than when you're just meeting a cis person you've never met before.
Yeah. Do you feel that as well? Like both of you feel that way?
Yeah. It's like the same hat kind of thing. Like, hey.
Yeah. And like, you don't have to that it takes off. You realize like how much shit you're dealing with every day when you meet a trans person, and you can just do your thing, and you don't have to have like that static
and relax and stop pretending a little.
Yeah, it's nice. You can like kind of talk more openly. Usually, I don't know. I really don't have a filter with anybody, so I have a hard time. I can't filter much.
Well, though, even if you can't filter much, that there's like even sharing as much as you do, like it's just like that knowing that when you tell somebody something, a trans person something, that trans person not only understands it most of the time, but like really feels it. You know what I mean? Like that's the connection.
Yeah. Sorry, my cat just made a ton of noise.
I didn't hear it.
Oh, good. She just dumped over like half of my bedroom to grab a rubber bracelet off of this giant shelf. Anyways, yeah, it's weird. I feel that way with like trans women and non-binary folk, but trans men like stress me out, and I feel like weird talking to them.
Wait, really?
Yeah. I feel like
interesting.
It's weird. I don't feel like I really relate to many of the trans men I met, and I feel like it's almost kind of like the same thing that cis men go through, where like they're always like, what is it called, like puffing?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's weird. There's always like, well, I've been on T longer than you, and this and that, and it's always like I always feel really uncomfortable because I'm not about like any type of contest, even like. That's some like shows stress us out when I feel like there's like competition during our show and stuff, and I just don't like any form of competition ever, like ever. Like people have invited me to do like drum offs and stuff, and I always say no. So like I feel like personally I relate more to trans women and like non-binary people when I meet them.
That is fucking awesome. That's a great insight, actually. I never even thought about that. Do you know any other trans dudes that feel the same way? Have you heard that before in the community?
I don't even know if I feel comfortable asking any of them. I get scared. I only really have one. Yeah, one trans dude friend. That's it. And even him, sometimes I get like nervous. It's weird.
Wow.
Yeah.
What about you, Lavedy? Do you have any experience? How do you feel about, relating to people? Do you feel that way with other trans women? I think it's different. I think there's some similarities, but maybe it's different.
I definitely feel like I've met more trans men that were like pro cop bootlickers than I have met trans women. There's definitely like this like getting privilege and taking advantage of that, whereas like we don't, like the other way around, you don't quite get that nearly the same.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But
that's a good point.
Yeah, I can totally see what you mean.
As far as like when I'm meeting like trans women, when they're like extremely good at being like high femme, I definitely get significantly more nervous and just like, oh, you're better at it than me.
Oh. Welcome to my life. That's a thing, right? Like it almost triggers. I get not triggers, but yeah, there's both sides. It's like it could trigger some sort of dysphoria there, but it can also be like, it also is a realization to me sometimes of like looking within yourself and being like, it's okay. Like this is a different person's expression of that, and I don't need to fit that to be more or less valid. And that's hard to remember.
Definitely.
Yeah, it is really hard to remember for sure.
But I want to dig into, again, this is a kind of a selfish podcast because I wanted to have Lavedy on specifically, all because you're just, I don't know, again, I don't have much background on you, but like you just have so much, like I guess the term would be like street knowledge. You've been through some shit, and
that's fair.
You're also like super intelligent, and like you have such an awareness of all this stuff going on, and you're a survivor, which I look up to that. Like I'm inspired by like how you've done it and how you do it on your own, and like how you're just a badass in that way. So I just wanted to, yeah, let me just blow all the smoke up your ass. But
well, thank you. I'm blushing.
Oh, cool. Well, that's I mean, and also, and I've got to know you just through music stuff and just being a raw rapper. And I think I first met you at I don't know. This is just what I feel from where I first met you to where you are now, in like a transitional period, like when you were in Vegas, and like I think you were dealing with some heavy shit at the time. And I'm sure we'll get to that if you're cool sharing some of that.
Definitely.
But if you want to just run down a bit about, I guess, who you are, I guess we can put it under a lens of like, hey, I'm a rapper and here is my life and here I started. I guess we'll look at the trans part of it just for the sake of this podcast, but I know that we're going to talk about so much more than that. So if you wanted to just, I guess I just want to start with, being a trans person. How did that start for you? I guess, I mean, we know how it all starts, but like, how was that for you growing up, and what kind of situation did you kind of come up in?
I grew up with like really, really, really supportive parents. That when I was like a little oogle shithead that was riding freight trains, I could send pictures of them, like just pictures of myself to them, like on top of a grainer, and they'd be like, "That's so cool." And I was like a little punk that like ran around the streets at like 13, just bussing up punk shows from across town, and just getting into lots and lots of trouble. And it just seemed like no matter what I did, my parents didn't care. Like getting caught shoplifting, well, I got grounded for a few months, but they still loved me. Or like showing up home at like 1:00 in the morning from a punk show, like inches away from being blacked out, and like covered in banana, because that's what happens when you're a punk. You end up in wild predicaments. And it was just like, I definitely fully saw support from them no matter what I was doing. So like when I came out, I didn't have that, like, when I realized I didn't have that like, oh, I should keep this to myself moment that I know that a lot of other trans people have, where they kind of like, oh, I think I'm trans, and then they like hold on to it for a really long time, a year or so, and then they start telling other people.
Yeah.
It was more of a like, hey, I think I'm trans. And then it was just like, the more that I started to like dive into that, the more that I was like, oh, other things started to click about my childhood, like painting my fingernails, or why is it always the rock bands that are fronted by girls that I like so much more than the other way around, and like, why is it that I just never got men? Like the song "Drinking with the Jocks" by Against Me is really fitting, where it's just like being around men was a constant. I didn't want to participate in that puffiness, you know. I never felt like puffing up my chest did me any good. It wasn't who I was, and so being forced to do that just felt gross, and most of the time I lost and I tried to attempt it. And so like removing masculinity from myself became like learning how to take a deep breath for the first time.
Yeah. How old were you at that point when you first started coming to that realization?
I was about 22, 23.
Okay. And where was this? This all in Vegas?
Yeah, this was all in Vegas.
Okay.
I started realizing the first day that I realized is this is really oddly personal, but like I had my own dress in like old women's clothing for a long time, but it definitely was just for like personal sexual things. And then one day afterwards, or actually specifically Christmas, I got out of bed and was like, well, I want to put the dress back on. And then I never wanted to take it off.
Yeah, it's funny you mentioned that. Thanks for sharing that, by the way, because I think there's a lot of trans people that or I know trans women that's a kind of a shared experience where it kind of starts off as something like that.
Like a taboo.
And then as you get older, it like, oh shit, this is something else.
It's like you don't have any explanations of why you feel like you're a girl.
Yeah.
And so you put it into the one thing that doesn't have any explanations, that like you're allowed to just have taboos exist because it's behind closed doors.
Yeah.
Maybe. I don't know.
I definitely think that's part of it. And then if you happen, I think this is weird too. We're getting personal for everybody, but I think part of it, you know, it's interesting studying like trans women too that are like, you know, attracted to women. I think that manifests itself in an interesting way too, as you're growing up as a kid, as an adolescent, and like trying to make sense of like sex and like how can I like be attracted to a woman and then want to be, and I feel like I am one too. It's confusing as fuck.
Yeah, no, that's definitely like like really confusing, and it's just like I think I've seen it sum up before. I don't know who I'm getting this from, but it's like I liked women so much I became one.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
So you're 20 something coming up, and then you start to realize all this stuff. And at this time, I mean, I know you're a punker. Are you like in school and doing all this shit, or are you like rebelling against that as well?
I was rebelling against that. I was in like a mildly successful folk punk band that was doing really good in Vegas and doing really good in the Southwest in general. Like I came out publicly in the month before my 23rd birthday. And then, you know, there was a lot of like people in the scene on like my coming out post, because I came out on Facebook before. I didn't take that long to come out on Facebook. It was just like I had a show that I was going to, and I didn't want to go there performing as a man. And so it's just like, well, if I'm going to go, I'm going to go. So I'm just going to tell everyone right now. So that way no one's surprised when I fucking get there.
Yeah.
And there for every one comment that was shitty, there was like 3 good comments. It's a pretty okay ratio for coming out, I guess.
Sounds about right. It's about average.
And for a while, I thought, you know, it was like, you know what? I think this punk scene is really, really going to get me. I was wrong.
Yep.
within the scene, I faced harassment from like prominent members within the punk community. Me and my friend pretty much were harassed for a few months, both online and in person. We were getting bullied over the word dude. My friend posted something along the lines of like dude not being gender neutral. And the punk scene people who ran a venue out in Las Vegas harassed us online, created like really violent dialogue, and like would like post things that were making fun of us all the time. And then like I went to a show, and I just remember being like sitting, like being in a corner with my arms crossed, being all right, and then the set ending, and then this person coming up to me and then just like telling me I was wrong for 20 minutes drunkenly. And I was just like, can I say anything? You're going to be the only one doing the talking. Also, can you step back like 3 feet? Like,
Yeah.
And that was also the same venue that I was groped at a hardcore show. During a really rad set of an all-female straight edge hardcore band. And I just remember being like, cool, I'm a girl, I'm straight edge, like, let's have this fun. And then like in the pit, someone came up from behind me and like grabbed me by the tits and like squeezed and like spun me around. And then when I got upset about it, like it seemed like the room just got between me and him.
Crazy.
And they were all had their backs to him. It was, and I was just like, really? Like, am I the only one that saw, like, I'm the only one that saw this? And then, like, the thing is when you start a fight, like, at straight edge hardcore shows, like, you got to be kind of careful walking to your car. And so it's just like me and, like, a couple of my friends were like, we got to get out of here. Yeah. That's part of, like, my experience within the punk scene was just, like, you know, going sober. I was just like, cool, since all of my drunk punk friends don't really want to hang out with me, I guess, because they stopped inviting me to everything, I guess I'll go hang out with the straight edge kids. And that was gross and toxic. And then I just kind of started to isolate myself. Like lots and lots of isolation. I didn't feel like welcomed in the scene. It was something that like for 8 years I built up. Like I booked a show. I booked Days and Days in Night Gaunts in Vegas, and that had like 400 or 500 kids at a house show.
Whoa!
And no cops got called. I'm very proud of that. But so like I went from being really, I want to say like really high up in the community, but for folk punk I definitely ran shit, to being just like nothing and isolated. And there's like a lot of things that like are intertwined and all that. Like I feel like coming out and trying to find sobriety, and just like also me just like being like, wow, all of my friends were really, really straight and cis, and I don't have that many queer friends. And
Was a lot of the like the bullying, I guess, for lack of a better term, but bullying or like the rhetoric going on? Was it like, were they specifically like open about like anti-transness, or were they just like, or was it that like, you know, that pseudo like sort of, you know what I mean, like that energy that people tend to give you without being overt or saying it out loud?
Depends on where it was from, but it was that they definitely knew how to play the part to make it not so they weren't getting canceled for saying shit, but they, it's like instead of saying tranny, they say real woman. You know, like it's doing the same thing, and it's just like finding new ways to say it.
Find ways that most cis people, unless they're educated, would be like, well, they're not transphobic because they didn't say, like they didn't say tranny. And even though it's just as offensive, they find ways to like make almost like a cryptic way to offend you without like the masses understanding that it's just as offensive.
Exactly.
Seems pretty common to this day, right? Even right now.
Unfortunately.
So how do you, when all that's going down, and then like, so how does this affect? Does it affect like you being open and honest and out with everything? Because that's one journey, right? Like, and then
Yeah.
if you're dealing with that static, how does that affect your overall like mental health? That has to start to take a toll.
Oh, it definitely took a toll. I didn't have a support system. I didn't have healthcare. I was working minimum wage, living in a studio downtown, and my apartment had bed bugs for when I moved in, and like I had no self-worth, none whatsoever. I was constantly defeating myself, and I wasn't drinking, but I was still finding ways to self-harm emotionally. I was just constantly attacking myself. Such deep of scars that it was like I didn't start healing from them until about like after like 4 or 5 years, like until just like recently that I started to make like huge strides into healing that like huge amount of self-harm that I caused on myself. I couldn't take care of myself. I did everything I could to like work really hard at work. You know, I was like, I got promotions. I was an assistant manager, but like my apartment, I didn't do dishes. I did dishes like twice the entire 2 years that I lived in this apartment.
Sean style.
And it was I just wallowed is
Was that
exactly what I did.
Do you think, I mean, did that, because we talked about earlier, we talked about your parents being supportive. Was that playing a factor? How were like once you came out, did your parents flip on you?
Yeah, it was a different kind of flip because I mentioned how like I mentioned how I came out on Facebook. That's how they found out. My parents weren't really active on Facebook, so it didn't feel like a problem to me. I was going to wait until I saw them for our scheduled weekly dinner. And I show up and my dad's really drunk. And yeah, right? And he said a bunch of really, really hurtful things. One of the ones that have like stuck out the most was like, "You're gonna make one ugly fucking bitch," and it was just like, ooh. And I was
Totally
just
not
like,
true, by the way.
"Thank you." It was like it was so weird because when I told my parents I was bi before that, they just kind of like blinked at me and they're like, "Okay, cool." Like, not surprised by this at all. But like this for some reason specifically like hurt my dad.
Mm-hmm. Always does. It's always the dads.
It's always the dads, right? And so it wasn't so much that like they told me I was gonna go to hell and that I'm never gonna end that, not to see them again. They made their actions spoke significantly louder than their words. So coming, never using my name or pronouns. And then I came to Thanksgiving dinner, and my dad had informed me that my grandparents don't want to see me, like ever, as Alice, that they are unwilling to ever see me as Alice. And so I had the option of pretending not to be who I am, or not showing up for Christmas.
Welcome to my life. Just kidding. Didn't mean to steer it on there.
No, that's. I feel like I think I have a lot of trauma from that rejection, and I just I noticed that so many like you talk to like most straight people or cis people about Christmas, and they're all like, "It's the most wonderful time of the year," and you talk to a trans person about it, and they're like, "It's the most miserable time of the year."
Literally, yeah.
It's filled with a lot of anxiety, where those times of the month are kind of like, or actually we're getting close, where the anxiety will start to build, and the mix of, and you could speak on this. I don't mean to start talking
go right
about
ahead.
it, but like it's just, yeah, it's like that anxiety of, and it's funny. The only reason I thought about it is because I was presented, well, and again, it's not so overt, right? Like, at least, I mean, it is and it isn't. Like, your family tries to still be there and be supportive in these ways, and then that's kind of like on the table of, oh, and they kind of make it feel like it's your fault, like, oh, you could just like not do this and show up, and they make you feel like you have to decide like between being like, it doesn't work like that. This is who I am. Like, I can't just turn the shit off and then come to the event in a way that you want. That'd be so weird. But all that creates all this anxiety. Oh my God, I'm getting so like triggered by it. But you're right, and it's traumatic, and it changes who you are, and it changes. It's just wild. But you go ahead and pick up from there because I'm fascinated by just the parallels.
The whole like moral of Christmas too is shoved down your throats through every single commercial. It's inescapable, right?
Yeah.
And it's like the moral of the story is family. That family always sticks together, family always comes together, and you're just sitting there alone in your cockroach-ridden apartment, like just being like, this is my family.
Yeah.
And like
and you probably have memories of like when it was good.
It was good, yeah. And I've had a lot of friends like step up and be like, come spend Christmas over at my family, which is always, it feels like at first you're like, yay, I'm not spending like Christmas alone, and you have like a really good time, and then you get home and you're like, wow, that made me more lonely somehow.
No, I've done that before for Thanksgiving, and it's like, wow, now I feel like a weird like orphan almost. Like, it's a strange feeling.
Yeah. I for some reason get when people who give you gifts when they don't know you seem to get very similar gifts. So 3 out of 5 years I got a fleece blanket. So I have a collection of like Christmas themed fleece blankets.
They really care about you. That's why.
And it's this is definitely like we're touching on like the mental health aspect of it all, is like to really like cement like how much damage that really was, is like almost every single Christmas I spent watching It's a Wonderful Life on VHS, just crying to myself every single time, just being like trying to just grab at straws at who are the people in my life that like are genuinely still affected like by me. Like I'm nowhere near George Bailey. George Bailey is a wonderful like this just like you spend the whole movie thinking about how he's like a like wonderful person, and I just always thought about like what if I was about to jump off the bridge and like Clarence is like, I get it.
Yeah.
And so like and I don't want to like shit talk on my dad too much, because he's kind of trying, like just started after about 5 years now using my name and pronouns. So
cool.
it's
further
great.
along than my dad.
But it's like it's weird, is because like he still holds on to the fact that like I didn't come out to him before coming out to social media. Like he takes that as a personal attack. And
I think dads do that. It's weird. I had the same experience. It wasn't about coming out, but like they're like the most sensitive ever about like that kind of stuff. I feel like moms are kind of like they don't have that element, but I feel like I relate to that big time. Like with my dad, same thing. It was like they're just like sappy and sad about a lot of these things that happen. Actually, it's like it's more, and like what you just mentioned, like I don't know. Maybe it's just what they say though. Who knows what they're actually upset about? Maybe they're just mad because they don't have their boy there anymore.
I think that's really, really the case, because like I've talked to him and he's tried to open up, but you know how men are with feelings, especially fathers, they just don't have them other than angry.
It's so weird.
And
Bentley,
so,
how has it been with your? Sorry, Lavedy. I was just curious because it's an interesting. We can have this talk here because it's interesting because we have the two trans women going on with dads. What is it like for a trans dude and a dad? And mom, vice versa. Is the roles reversed in that way?
Personally, for me, they are reversed. I think my mom is still like heartbroken, even though she accepts it now. She like always kind of, I don't know. It was weird. She's had a hard time from the beginning, but she never like said anything mean until later, because I said Jesus Christ in her house once. Yeah, my dad like accidentally misgendered me, and I was like, Jesus Christ, and my mom was like, we'll continue that if you say Jesus in our house again like that. But like that, so that was pretty fucked up. But other than that, like she's been pretty supportive. But I can tell she's the one taking it a lot harder because she like lost her daughter or whatever, and I just don't have the like ability to feel bad because I've never felt like a girl ever, like ever. And I've back, I've always shown the signs, like since I was like 3 years old, like all the signs have been there. So I don't know where this idea of like the daughter even like came from that she's losing, because I was never that person, even when I wasn't out. And I think my dad is fine. I don't think he feels either way. I think the only thing that upsets him is he wanted grandkids.
Well, that could still happen, but you don't want kids in any way, shape, or form, right?
Yeah, I don't want kids. At least right now, I don't want kids. But I would never, ever. I don't know. Like, more power to the trans men that still get pregnant, but I would kill myself. I could not do that. I could not do that. But yeah. So I think my dad is most upset about the me not getting married and having kids thing, but he seems fine. Like on my surgery date, he like texted me and was like, "Have a good surgery, buddy." I don't know.
Well, that's cool.
Yeah. So that was it. I said thank you and text him, and he didn't text me back. But like that's something, you know.
That's awesome. That's cool.
Yeah, for a dad, that's a mile. Like,
yeah, like that. I mean, it's so funny how all these parallels. I mean, it can't be, you know, there's one of us, two of us, there's three of us. It's got to be a large majority of people, hopefully, that are listening that can kind of relate to this. But Lavedy, to get back to where we were, and I know we were talking about, we got to dads talking about. So all this is going on. Did you ever? What helped you here? Because I know you hit some low points, and like, how do you turn this around to get to a place where you start to just kind of, I guess, survive? I mean, we're all surviving, but was it worse than it is now? And how did that happen? I guess is what I'm asking. Like, how did you find the strength or resources to be able to just like pick it up and continue on?
This is like where the story starts to get really, I feel like makes me start to realize how this is, I don't know. I was trying to come up with a transition, and I guess that's
Cool.
something that I don't have that much experience in.
You'll figure it out. We're all here. You can figure it out together.
So I think like the pinnacle point of when I was like, I need to make a huge change in my life, because, you know, when it came out, shortly after coming out, it was like, you know what, this is great. I'm going to use this as an opportunity to get sober. And I was sober for 3 years. And then my partner at the time and I broke up. And when we broke up, they outed me as an abuser. Mm-hmm. And the things that they listed as part of this abuse were definitely just like PTSD episodes, you know, mm-hmm. just me being depressed and me being so isolated and not having any idea how to handle the trauma from the large amount of violence that I faced as a child, and the sexual assault that I faced as a young adult. Yeah. That like all of this was just manifesting into this pretty monstrous person. Mm-hmm. I made myself a person I couldn't love anymore, and I wasn't able to, no matter how hard I tried. I came out to Albuquerque to just, I don't feel like it was an attempt to like start over. It was more of a chance to take a deep breath. Mm-hmm. And the moment I got out here, I was able to apply for Medicaid, and then was able to get insurance and get into therapy and start doing things like EMDR to address the traumatic events of my childhood. And, you know, it comes in its spurts, but I remember there was this point in time for about like 3 months where I was happy, not manic, but like actually happy. I was meditating like every day, and like believing in myself, and it got to the point where my intrusive thoughts were being nice to me. Like they were kind. I was like very confused. I was just like, my brain was wandering. It was just saying nice things about me. And I was like, what is going on here? And it wasn't something that like happened overnight, and it took a lot of work. And so I feel like the more that I got away from like Las Vegas, the community that was bringing me that much toxicity, was like the better I got and the closer to myself I got. Also, Albuquerque actually has a queer community, where in Vegas it's not quite the same.
Yeah.
It's like you got a bunch of queer bars out there, but like it's not the same as like, you know, like a little DIY like library, like queer library that does moody black shows. Like
good time. I love Albuquerque. Is on the like top 5 cities list for me. I really love Albuquerque.
Hell yeah.
Every show we play there, everyone's always so friendly.
Yeah.
It's an absolutely amazing place. I have nothing terrible to say about this place except for the food, and that's like,
yeah, I could see that.
That's fighting words out here, but like no one out here knows how to make food.
I'm gonna have to. I totally get what you're saying, and I'm gonna have to agree with that. Just because, you know, me and Sean are foodies and we know all about it. Albuquerque, and I think what makes it so disappointing is because it should be good. Like,
right?
It's Albuquerque. Like, the region that it's in is surrounded by amazing food.
Well, there's a really good spot. I don't know if you know where that.
Oh, here we go.
That 99-cent dollar Goodwill is the magic one that's all $1, and I'm so jealous that y'all have that there. There's a Mexican place down the street from there that has like some of the best green and red chili I've ever had.
Nice.
Really?
Yeah, we go there every time for like years.
Okay, wait. There's 2 places now that you got me thinking that I like. Has anybody been to the Burrito Lady?
I haven't.
See? Good. Okay. Damn it, Lavedy. Go to the Burrito Lady, because it's called the Burrito Lady. It's in a small strip mall. That's good. Breakfast, tacos, and burritos. But, and then I also like, this is probably real stupid because the fucking television show ruined it, but I like the Doghouse.
Oh, I didn't. I thought their hot dogs tasted like paper. There was like no flavor in the hot dogs.
You know, they're shitty hot dogs, but they're good shitty hot dogs.
Maybe try it again.
Did you like it, Bentley?
I haven't. I don't eat meat.
You can't eat that. You can't eat anything there.
I don't eat meat or wheat, so.
Yeah, you don't count. I'll make you something though. Anyway, now that we're all off track with our wonderful food discussion. See, you can't get me started on food. I get serious about it. But it's funny too, because we're talking about like all this trauma, and then it's like, well, you know, fucking the hot dogs suck. Like,
No,
there was a direct line there.
Yeah.
Yeah, maybe you just had a hot dog on a maybe you went there on a sad day. Maybe you got to go there on a happy day, and then you'd be like, yes, this hot dog's great. But you know, I'm still fascinated by the fact that you had the resolve. You know how many people don't seek out therapy because of the stigma, or they just would like allow some of that trauma to overtake them, and that's understandable. Like, we're just now as a society taking seriously like PTSD and trauma having these tremendous effects on people, long-lasting effects that you know that create cycles of abuse and all these things. So it's just interesting to me, like the fact that you were able to kind of to stop that, like to stop, and it sounds like largely of your own accord. Like I don't think that's easy to do.
It definitely wasn't, and it definitely wasn't like immediate either. And it came out of necessity, you know, like it literally was like, if I don't get better, I'm going to end up dead. Yeah. Like if I don't end up better, I'm going to end up losing my job and be on the streets. If I don't end up better, I got to. And so like coming out to Albuquerque, I would say like the first winter I got out here, I relapsed and just started drinking a lot. And I was drinking like every single day, and like I didn't get like therapy immediately when I came out here. But I was about to lose my apartment or lose my cats, like, because, and so I was just like, I can't lose my cats, and I was like having like an emotional, like huge emotional breakdown. I ended up getting yelled at by my property manager over it, and it was like really messed up, you know, just like nothing feels better than when you're sobbing because you have the two choices in front of you to lose the one constant support system you've had in the past 5 years or end up on the streets.
Yeah.
And somebody's just yelling at you, sir, calm the fuck down. Like, oof. And so I would like, I was just calling up a bunch of like therapist places and just being like, can you see me? I know I have PTSD. I know that I do. You can't tell me that I'm not. Like, And I found somebody that was able to help me out and get my cats registered as an emotional support animals and get me diagnosed with PTSD and like start on my path. And it's like, it's interesting too, because like for about 2 years, I was doing pretty good. You know, it's ups and downs. Like, I started to come to terms with what like depression felt like, you know, where it was just like, instead of like depression winning, it was just like, oh, I haven't done the dishes or washed myself in 3 days. I must be depressed. I'll take care of that tomorrow. And the next day, like, I wake up, hop in the shower, and like meditate, tell myself I'm going to be okay, and do my dishes. Like, it's not always that easy, but I came to terms with it. And then I had this incident with my closest group of friends out here, where like, if it was really like such an extreme amount of virtue signaling, where these people were essentially like constantly like making it as if me and my partner were like these like terrible people, while they were just acting really mean and ugly. And in ways that like were really gross and manipulative. And I was just like, you know, after what I had gone through, I was like, I don't need any more of this. Like, I have been through this enough in my life, and I have the ability to just say, no, I'm done. And so I did that. And then, you know, going through that process again after, you know, constantly being told that like, I am not enough, you need to get out of here, over and over and over again. I'm not enough to be your I can't be your daughter. You're not good enough to be my daughter. Leave. You're not good enough to be my best friend. Leave. You're not good enough to be my partner. You're terrible. All this. And just like it recently just got back to me. So like I had this like my intrusive thoughts for like the past 2 years that I've been struggling with the most have just been like, I was outed as an abuser, so that means these intrusive thoughts must be right. You know, I am a terrible person, that I have this evidence, and which is it's not true. I am not a terrible person. I'm just a traumatized person that has to put in the work to be a good person, like we all do. And so like having that same language recently like used towards me was just like, it was super, super triggering. And about actually a month ago, like today, I woke up from a hospital from a suicide attempt. So when I talk about like progress not being linear, like the time, like I had been okay at one point in time. I had been doing good, but like leading up to that, like, and going through those triggers all over again, it's hard to pick yourself up.
And that's something that you'll probably deal with. You know, again, that's part of the discussion with PTSD and mental health is it is something that you have to work on constantly. And you shouldn't get down about the fact that, you know, and thank goodness that was the case. I noticed that you went dark for a little while, because I follow, you know, we all follow each other. And when someone kind of disappears like that, your brain starts to think of things, because I don't know. Like I relate. Like I think people again. Maybe this is a trans thing. It's not just trans, but it's also we all kind of live on the fringes of society. Not just
Yeah.
because we're trans, but our lifestyles. But like, and so like when you see that, you're like, oh God, I hope this person's okay because it could be me, it could be Bentley, it could be any one of us because like you said, it's every day. Like we survive and we do these podcasts and we take these brilliant pictures of ourselves and manipulate them and bullshit people. But the truth is, you know, every day is a struggle and at some point, at least for me, and I'm sure for a lot of people.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It, it doesn't get easier. You just learn to like find joy when you can.
Yeah.
And in the pieces between the hurt, take a deep breath and like feel a breeze and hang out with your cat or have a good time and just be like, I know this is my favorite thing in the world. So like I like to capture these moments and like take like a deep breath, like, and I meditate. So, cause like if you meditate for like even just like a split second, like it really like throughout your week, it really helps. And so I will take these moments and I'm like, oh, I'm particularly thankful for this moment and I want to hold on to it. So like the next time I need access to something that I'm thankful for, I have this moment. And so I call it my thank bank.
That's awesome. I thought it was Spank Bank.
Yeah, now I call it my thank bank.
That, you know what, that's a brilliant. Again, you're sharing some cool, and hopefully people look up some of this stuff. But how much of everything that you've gone through, and we didn't get into like, you know, we don't need to get into specific stuff, but how much of that is like to bring it back to like this podcast, like to some of the subject matter? How much of that, or how does being a trans person inform any of that? What did any of that have anything to do with what's been going on, or like how has that shaped you through like a trans lens, or does that even matter to you? Because you know, I know how that it's not really a thing either. So I know it's kind of a weird question, but how much of like the transness kind of play into like all these things that you've gone through?
I feel like it's like so intertwined that like even if I were to try and remove transness from like the dialogue, I couldn't do it. Like, thanks, Kat, for that loud noise.
Fuck.
So you know, as in like junior high and high school, I was really small, effeminate, flouncy, and I was an easy target for bullying. I lived in a neighborhood with a lot of gang activity, so I was jumped a lot.
Yeah.
At least 4 or 5 times. It's weird. It's like through like just getting to the point now where through like therapy and EMDR where I'm like, oh, I forgot all about that one. Thanks. That's exactly what I needed. And like. And it was all because I was a woman and just didn't know it yet.
Yep.
You know, and everyone else around me did.
Yep.
And then, you know, having my community isolate me after like coming out, and it's like it happened in fractions. It wasn't all at once. So it was like, you know, coming out, I lost this set of friends. Getting sober, I lost this set of friends. Like,
they just disappear.
Not liking Pokemon Go, I lost this set of friends. And
how dare you?
I love Pokemon, just like that. Come on, that game is trash. And I'm like I've beaten every single generation multiple times. So like, I think my opinion on Pokemon Go just matters just a little bit. But
yeah, I agree.
So, and then like having PTSD episodes, not knowing what they were or having language for them, and just breaking down because I never had the access to like crying. Instead, I was just so angry that I couldn't be sad. No matter how hard I tried, I couldn't just be sad. And then being called out, and then having even less community to come to, just being like, okay, I need accountability. What does this look like? And they're just being crickets.
Yep.
And just being like, well, what am I supposed to do then? Like, just disappear? This is what you want out of every trans woman ever. Like, what am I supposed to do? I've been fighting my whole life to not disappear. And I'm not going to lose to this idea that I just need to, like, not exist, not have community, and not have support. And I see that, like, that whole process being trans related, losing my support system, aggravating the PTSD, and my PTSD leading to like the call out, and then like not having support after that call out. They're all trans related. Every single aspect of that had something to do with my trans identity. And like, it's, if I have the two options of like resenting my transness or resenting them, and I am just kind of, I don't think either of those are the right option. So I'm still like myself, like looking for like the new option, and it really is just like being kind to yourself and others, even though it can be exhausting to be kind to yourself. But like once you can do that, like being kind to other people just come naturally.
Yeah. That makes a lot of sense, the way you just broke it down. It actually ties up everything really nicely, because I was thinking, it's like, it made me think when you're mentioning that of how much of my life was that like that. Because even if you weren't out growing up, or it's all hindsight. We've talked about this a lot on this podcast. When you look back and you're like, the things that we didn't connect with people with, whether it was family or friends, and the shit that we took was mostly because of like what people would call, or what people perceive as like feminine traits, or being mine was always like, oh, I was too emotional all the time, which again isn't necessarily, you start to find these like slippery slopes of like stereotyping. But it's not stereotyping. I mean, it kind of is, but it's like, like we had these traits that it's weird, because it's like, as a musician or as a visual person, like as a trans person, like people want to celebrate that, like, your look, or the fact that you perform well, whatever it is. But like, there's so much of like my personal life that people just ignore. And I think that's because of the trans shit. Like there's a lot that I feel like on a day to day that, or interaction, or like, I don't know, reception, something that I don't get from like people in daily life, that like I feel like has a lot to do with being trans, and people just kind of shutting off that part of their brain and like not allowing me access to just being treated like everybody else.
Yeah. Oh, so like I see that in like Facebook groups a lot, to the point where I'm just like, I'm done with those things.
Yeah.
Like, cause like I really like thrifting, and thrifting is like a huge passion of mine, and it's like I feel like almost more about my more of my identity than my transness. Like sometimes if I'm lucky, that's what people notice more so than being trans.
Yeah.
And so like I was on this like Facebook group, like weird thrift finds that must be shared or something like that. Very, like, it was huge. And I had these balloon sweaters that like I was really excited about, and they were like these handmade like woven balloon sweaters. So I was like, oh cool, I gotta post these. They came with like a cool story, and I worked at a thrift store that funded the Transgender Resource Center, and
cool place,
so
yeah.
like I included that in there because, well, it was important to me.
Yeah.
And then it got thousands of comments, like rapidly. Whoa. Like thousands of comments, thousands of shares. It like was blowing up really quickly. And so I was just like, you know what? This is cool. While this is blowing up, I'm going to put, by the way, if you like my style, check out my music. And and I want you to know, I got like 1,000 breeders to follow me within the course of like that period.
It's fucking
so
awesome.
I actually, it was like I got 1,800 new followers, most of them like woke ally breeders, and I've lost about 1,000 of them.
Oh my gosh!
Just by being myself, but all the comments got disabled after like 12 hours. And I was just like, wait a minute, what happened?
Yeah.
And a moderator was just like, we're doing this because of the transphobia. I'm like, there are literally thousands of comments about how beautiful I am and like 10 transphobic comments.
Yeah.
Like, y'all are just excluding me to be PC. And I was just running along that, like, where it's like, well, we're here to be inclusive by excluding you. And it's just like, that doesn't serve us.
Yeah.
And I had the same experience with an entomology page where I was just like, I made some joke about how like the cicada experience and the trans experience are very similar because you live underground for a very long time, come out just to scream and fuck. And
More or less.
And most of the comments that I got on that were trans people being like, "Oh my God, so true," and then like it got deleted.
Oh my God!
So one person that was just like, "This is a meme page about bugs. Don't bring your politics into this."
What politics? It's not even a politic.
I know.
Oh.
This is awesome. You and Bentley can go on all day about internet groups and comments. I stay the fuck away as much as like I say shit, and then I try to stay out of the comments for all of those reasons. Y'all are.
Oh, it's a self-harm that I do a lot. Oh, it's so bad.
It's really bad.
That was a great point. I never thought. I think like if they canceled trans people's posts from the transphobia, like we'd never be able to post shit. Like there's always going to be people talking shit in the comments.
Yeah, especially now because all of a sudden all these people think it's okay to be out and open as like racist and transphobic and stuff because they got their bros to stand up for them.
Yeah.
Well, yeah. I mean, that's kind of everybody's made it okay, right? Like, the people, the administration, everything, every day is saying that in their own ways that's okay. That trans people are not valid, not real, and it's just wild that there's no responsibility taken on their end for the harassment, the murders that occur, because to me all those people are responsible.
Yeah. Oh, it's on Facebook. I have a friend that's been trying to use that bullying as like a platform, and like I would just like read through the comments and just be like, oh, why am I reading these? And they were just so mean and so constant and terrible. There's the meme of like Sophie from Assigned Male Comics, a picture of her face, and then there's like laughs and suicide rate. And it's just like, you realize that it's this bullying that is making that suicide rate so high. But they don't understand the irony of what they're doing. Or maybe they do, and they just like participating in that grotesque nastiness. And so it's like, I've reported that picture comment 1,000 times. I've tried to do like, this is intellectual property, that's not theirs because it's somebody else's image. I've tried to use like, this is violent, and every single time Facebook has been like this doesn't violate our standards. And so I posted
is transphobic as fuck.
Oh yeah, definitely. And so I posted a photo of myself once to try and hype up something that I was doing, and I added one of my own lyrics to it. Where it's like, I'm a culture shock for wholesome Wisconsin folk who've never seen a faggot before. Shout out to my grandparents, it's nice to feel disposable. So like I included that as my caption, and then I got flagged for transphobia, for homophobia.
Yep.
I was just like, what? I've been going through comments, and I have probably reported at least 100 comments minimum, and I think I've had one successfully go through.
Wow.
And like it was, and I've literally had just like seen things like kill all trannies, and that passes after.
Oh
like,
yeah,
things like that. But like, I can't joke about myself.
Yeah, it's and there's so many instances you just mentioned, but in my experience and probably Bentley's as well, that like we know like that what that's all about, why that and that's fucked up. I mean, I'm just trying to. I was just thinking of all the shit that I read every day. I mean, and that's just at the basic level. And that's funny. The suicide thing always drives me nuts because it's like people use that all the time. A certain type of person uses that all the time, the argument. I'm like, what the fuck? How do you not realize that makes sense, that like trans people have a higher suicide rate? And it's not because we're trans. It's because of like having to live with the way the society treats us. That I'm very balanced. I'm fucking weird and fucked up, but I'm balanced to a point where like I'm not somebody at this point, at this moment in time, where I like would want to off myself, or I don't have a lot of suicidal thoughts. But if I have a bad day where I'm misgendered and shit happens and I'm reading shit online, I totally feel like I relate to people that want to kill themselves. And that's coming from someone that I think is just, luckily I'm privileged enough to be a little bit, just not as, I'm trying to think of a term that doesn't sound like pretentious. I don't want to say stronger, but like I'm able to deal with it a little better than other people. And like I can't imagine like how many people out there just fucking log on for 2 minutes and like feel like they just want to fucking be done. And it's not fair that that's not treated as like a serious threat.
It's mind blowing, because it's just like we are getting attacked from all of these different angles, you know, to include my entire story. That wasn't all the like transphobia that I was experiencing. I was experiencing it in the workplace, very obviously. And then and the whole time it's just like, hey, that's transphobic, and they're being really shitty to me, and they're like, I feel like the girl who cried wolf, and it's just like, how people are going to wait before they realize there's a fucking wolf behind me?
Yeah.
And so like, you know, from the workplace to like the scene to your family and and then you add the internet, and it's
the worst.
You're like, oh, I got a moment to breathe. I want to look at some cat pictures. Or for me, I want to look at some weird thrift stuff, or I want to look at some bug memes. And it's just like, oh my God, I can't escape it.
Yeah, that is so true. I listen to a bunch of pro wrestling podcasts, and they talk about transphobic shit, or they'll say something transphobic like 4 or 5 times a week. Like, it's weird where you hear it or it comes up.
How does that even come up in talking about pro wrestling? Like, what?
Well, especially nowadays. Well, it comes up a lot because people, well, especially recently, there's an awesome trans woman wrestler in a new organization called AEW who wrestles with women. And so it, you know, that opens up the floodgates to all these dudes being like, oh, and it's fucking pro wrestling, first of all. Like, I'm like, of all places, like, what a brilliant place for a trans woman to be able to just thrive and like, you know, but yeah, so that comes up a lot, or in that kind of conversation. I went on a pro wrestling, a huge pro wrestling podcast to defend or to speak up for trans people, because I was tired. I'm tired of it invading my space. Like, I want to like you said, I want to go. I love cats. I hate cats. Like, I'm sorry. I'm not a huge cat person. I love dogs. Cats are cute though. I get it. So like, I'd be down to look at cat pictures, but like, I just want to go home and escape from that shit too. And like, it encroaches on my like, I can't get away from it either. So it's so poignant that you brought up the fact that like, it feels like it's everywhere, and it puts you on the spot. Like when you're and now we're like a fucking talking point in discussion. So you walk outside and you feel like there's a spotlight on you even more so than ever, because you feel like you're making a political statement by just existing.
Yeah.
Sucks.
When I first came out, I had somebody approach me and they were like, "Well, what do you have to say about this trans UFC fighter? Blah blah blah, bone density." Yep. And I was just like,
Alan.
I don't know. Awesome. Like, first of all, I don't know shit about wrestling. Like, that's not what I know. That is quite the reason why I like associate with womanhood so much. It's like, I just don't like that greasy meanness. And I all the more power to you. But it's just like, I had to have been the person that answered for that, regardless if I knew anything about it. Like, I had to look up trans wrestlers, so that way when I was constantly being asked about it, I had the answer.
Yeah.
And I have to. We as trans people are supposed to know everything about being trans.
Yeah.
Yeah. Every life, no matter what hobby or like career someone's taking, we're supposed to know how it like fits into like being trans, and it's just like, can't keep up, dude. Like, cannot do it. I feel the same when people ask weird shit like that.
Yeah, well, you have answers now. Just be like, well, for that wrestler, they're talking about, not that this matters, but they're talking about Fallon Fox, who's a UFC fighter that, like, had a good little career, like wrestling, and then she wrestled other women. Wow, big shock. But yeah, so she won, and like she beat some people up and broke some girl's face, but other girls break other girls' face all the time in UFC. But when she did it, it was like a big deal. Yeah. And they never, again, you can always tell a mile away what they're using as a talking point. That's a good one, right? Like there's some legitimacy to asking the question of is it fair? Yeah, it is, because we have science. We know that it's fair. Like we've, with HRT, all these things, and then nobody talks about the fact that she's lost all these fights, because the losses don't matter. It's only the one win. So like, and then, but they use it as a platform. I'm down to have a discussion, but then it becomes, it's a man and women's sports. And then I'm out of the fucking conversation. I mean, I'm not out of it. I'm correcting, but they use it as a platform. That's where all this starts. Like, it's so ridiculous. It's like, I'm down to have it. Just say it's a woman whose body may be different and who might have a different level of whatever chemicals in her body. And we have to see if that's a fair starting point. That'd be fine with me to have that conversation.
Yeah, and also, like, if people educate themselves, once you're on HRT, if you are taking HRT, like, you lose muscle mass and stuff. It's, like, proven. I have so many friends that have just, like, totally lost. They said they can't, like, lift certain things anymore or whatever, like, heavy things and stuff like that. It's, like, a fact.
I am the one that hands the jar away now.
That's awesome. See, this is why I'm fucking stalling on HRT. I want to be opening up fucking a jar of pickles. Like, I'm trying to keep that strength.
If it makes you feel better, I still really can't open a jar of pickles. So
wait, you can't open it? Well, yeah. I mean, I get that.
Well, now my problem with testosterone now is my hands are so sweaty for the first time in my life that now I'm like, I might be strong enough to open the jar of pickles, but there's too much sweat.
Can you hold your drumsticks?
Yeah, I can hold my drumsticks, but they're definitely
no
better. But that almost, the way like wood works, it's almost a better grip now.
Oh, that's true. Yeah, I've grabbed a stick when I had a sweaty hand, and it was like, that sounded real sexual. I grabbed a stick. But I guess to round it out, because we've been talking a while, like Lavedy, I just wanted to get we got your story, got everything down, and just kind of, if you had anything else to say about kind of the current climate with we just talked about some of the trans stuff, but maybe something that you can offer for other trans people going through the shit right now. And you just got back, you just mentioned the stuff going on in your life with probably encountering medical care and all this stuff. Mm-hmm. How is it? What is your read on the climate with how everything's going for trans people, especially like, I guess, because we talked to Bentley a lot about the medical aspect and like, just like your normal everyday living shit. But with this pandemic and everything, as a trans person, have you noticed, has it been any better, worse, indifferent, like, dealing with all that kind of shit?
I gotta say, with isolation and the necessity to be isolated right now, I know that I'm not the only one that was been triggered by it, and I'm also know that I'm not the only one who's made like suicide attempts from it. And I'm watching. I have a friend that is just watching all of their trans friends just die one after another. And if I can suggest anything, is that with the way that pandemic has made everything on Skype or Zoom right now, that if there's anybody out there that is having really hard times, that if you're in a rural place or if you're not in a safe city or someplace like that has like a rich like LGBT community, is right now you finally have access to all of those communities outside, and that there's all sorts of Zoom and Skype meetings. There is Dharma Recovery, which is a non-13 step based recovery group that has queer multiple weekly queer and trans oriented like recovery groups that start off with a group meditation. There's all sorts of different different places that can help you right now. So just find help, because I'm really happy and lucky that I made it out, and I don't want anybody else to be another lost friend.
Yeah, me too. I feel the same way. And if you do you have any where can people hear like your music? Because I'm sure that I just saw you released a new song and try to share it as much as that. Like where can people find your work? Because for people that don't know, you make music and it's nowadays it's rap based for the most part. I know you do all sorts of shit, and it's to say it's rap is really pigeonhole. It's not, it's something different. It's like say Moody Black is rap. It's like you're missing so much more. But can you plug like some stuff where people can find you?
Yeah, definitely Bandcamp is the first place to start. LilLavedy.bandcamp.com. And my Lil Lavedy Facebook and Instagram is always like a great place. That's where all my stuff's going to be posted. I have an album that was recorded in Las Vegas that no matter how much I begged, I couldn't get mastered. So I am just doing it myself. And so it's gonna sound like doo-doo because I don't know what I'm doing, but the album's like 2 years old and it just needs to get put out, and then I'm gonna move on to new stuff.
Did you send it to me?
No, that was something that I plan on mixing up my sound just a little bit and incorporating my old folk punk
cool.
style with like piano, guitar, and drums and whatnot.
Hell yeah.
Well, shit. You should, if you need help doing that, I mean, if you don't want to master things on your own and I have the opportunity to do it, I have time. So if you ever wanted help getting that to sound decent and I can do that, I would be down to do that. And I don't need shit for it. I'm a believer in the stuff that you're doing, and I would love to just help facilitate if I can. I mean, I just want to help facilitate.
Oh, I appreciate that.
Yeah. So you can always hit me up for that kind of stuff. And if I have time, I'll try my best to help you out.
I think the transfer from like DIY punk to hip hop was like so weird to me, not because of like my transness, which was constantly every interview that I've gotten was just like, what's it like going into hip hop as a trans woman? Like, it's like, I feel like you're just baiting me to say something bad about hip hop, which you can't really get me to do.
Yeah.
And like, you had in DIY punk, it was just like, all right, I don't care what kind of gear I have, let's make something loud and like let's get my friends together. And then it's just like, for some reason, like paying for beats, I was always really confused by that. I was like, I've never paid my drummer before.
Yeah.
We've
I
always
get that.
just started a band.
Yeah. Don't pay for beats. Make them yourself or find people. I mean, pay for beats if you're going to get beats, obviously. I don't mean just like go rip people. But it's funny because I feel so weird about that. I stopped selling beats because A, because there's way too many getting out there. B, because people would do whatever they want on them that I wasn't always, that cool with. I mean, I'm cool with getting money, but then it felt weird. It's like I'm getting paid, but like, then our name is on this and I'm not. It just puts you in a fucked up position because I don't want to be an asshole and be like, it's not good, but like, it's most of the time not that good. Oh, I'm an asshole. But yeah. Cool. Bentley, do you have anything else to add for Lavedy?
I don't know. I think that was great. I'm fucking sore. I'm just really sore.
Oh yeah. So I don't know if you've been following Bentley's story, but he's been dealing with the aftermath of surgery on the chest.
Yeah.
So, how are you? What part of the process are you got like a week or 2 weeks until, or did you already get the tubes removed or whatever, the lines or whatever the fuck you got?
No, I got the drains removed a week ago.
Was that after we talked? Because I remember.
Yeah, that was hell, absolute hell. But yeah, now, like some days I'm like, oh, it's getting better. Then other days, like today, it's just so sore. And I'm gonna make a YouTube video about it and stuff like that on Instagram and just call some people out because some people like glamorize this and they act like the day they get out of surgery, they're like hiking and fucking living their dream. And it's like
doing push-ups and shit.
Yeah, and there's been days where I have more dysphoria because of like I couldn't take tea for 3 weeks before surgery, so it's just like a bunch of fucked up shit from not being able to take tea for 3 weeks and not being able to like really see my chest yet, and having this vest on that's so tight so it feels like I'm wearing a fucking bra or something, and it's just like there's a lot of weird like fucked up shit right now. But I mean, I know it's gonna be fine later, but I think a lot of people online just pretend that the second they roll out of the hospital they're like all done, and it's a long process.
Wow. Yeah, fuck that. I can't wait till you show all. You know what though? You're coming up on the tail end of it. And again, I just want to say thanks to both of you today, but also, specifically Lavedy, just because we do this every week, but for sharing, this story and some of the stuff going on. I think it'll be valuable to somebody listening and just getting that perspective. Like I know we mentioned when you texted or we had messaged on Facebook, just like I'm all about like, I'm so done. I mean, I love the science of it. I love all that, but like, I love to talk about like the reality and the stories that trans people have, because every trans person has like a fucking interesting story. So I can't remember how many podcasts I've heard where I've heard people tell their basic mundane story that's trans, and it just resonates with me so much.
Yeah, it's like Wendy Carlos doesn't really like talk much about like her transness, but like if you also met Wendy Carlos and all you wanted to do was talk about like what surgery or HRT she's been on, I feel like you completely remove what makes her interesting. Yeah. It's true. I mean, and that's why, so I mean, that's why I'm into that kind of shit too. And it helped me like come to terms with things and just be like, oh yeah, that's probably what I was going. It's wild. I mean, not so much now. I don't even hear fucking podcasts now. That's why we do this podcast. There's just not a ton of trans content that's podcast, that is a podcast that is like consistent. So hopefully we can add that to the mix of trans stuff going on right now. And I don't know. Thank you for being a part of the show. I've been cooking too long. I'm losing my mind. Yeah, of course. And yeah, next time we'll get you on the other podcast whenever we decide to launch that Mood House podcast again, and hopefully you'll have a project to share it and push. And like I said, if there's anything I could do to help facilitate that, I would love to do that and be able to whatever I can do. Cool. I think I got a track I could send you because I just took the MP3 of the instrumental and just put vocals over it. And I'm like, here we go. I hope this sounds good.
Oh, here we go. And I like working like that. I mean, also all that kind of shit like that can sound good. Like I think we've mentioned, we've talked a little bit about mixing, and you just like, don't get too caught up in the rabbit hole and just do whatever sounds good to you, and don't get caught up too much in the technical aspect, because it's a rabbit hole. You'll get stuck down, and everybody has an opinion and everybody thinks they know better. So it's like, it's confusing.
I also have the luxury of like, sometimes I'm like, because of how much punk that I've listened to and made, it's just like, sometimes it sounds better bad.
Yeah, hell yeah. Yeah. Made a whole fucking living off of that. A pseudo living. But cool. I guess we'll just end it now. Like I always say, like the end of the fucking Skype call is the most awkward to me, because it's like you just want to keep talking. Is Bentley still there? Bentley, are you there?
Yeah, I mean, I just locked off.
Hey, you never know. Just fell off, fell asleep. Got your drain stuck somewhere, and you're just stuck in a door. I know the drains are gone, but I just love making fun of those drains. At least they're gone. At least you can put your arms down, right?
Oh yeah. You'll see in my vlog I'm making. I show them on camera. It is not a pretty vlog. I'm like, this is what it is. All the vlogs are like. So like I learned a lot from them, so don't get me wrong, but a lot of them hide the cleaning side and like the nasty gross stuff, and I think it's really important that people know what this shit looks like. It's not like you roll out of surgery with a clean chest. It's like disgusting, and my nipples the first week look like little sausages from like those gray sausages from like nasty like frozen pizza.
Oh, those are good.
Yeah. And like
delicious.
Just like the blood and gore and stuff like that. So you'll see in my vlog. That's
cool. I mean, we're getting all the aspects here. So we got the story, we got story time, we got lifestyle, and then you bring the science and the chopping things
sports.
and blood and
Yeah, I think it's pretty cool.
Oh my gosh. All right. Well, I'll be in touch with everybody.
Oh, Transdemic with another fantastic episode. And I hope you got something out of that.
All the trans people out there, all the regular, just cis human beings. I hope you're enjoying Transdemic. We are enjoying ourselves. Keep sending in your questions. moodyblack@gmail.com. We will answer your questions on this podcast anytime, anywhere, no matter what it is. If you're apprehensive, ask it. Share this with your friends. Spread it around. Check out Lil Lavedy's music. And we'll see you next week here on the Transdemic.